John was a man who had been struggling with addiction for years. He started drinking and smoking as a teenager, and as he got older, his addiction only grew worse. He had tried to quit several times before, but always ended up going back to his old habits. He felt like he was stuck in a never-ending cycle, and he knew that he needed to take control of his life if he wanted to overcome his addiction. Addiction is a complex and multifaceted phenomenon that affects millions of people around the world. It is not just a physical dependence on a substance but also a psychological dependence that can be difficult to overcome. In this story, we will follow John's journey as he learns to understand the psychology of addiction and discovers the treatment options available to him. John realized that addiction was not just a physical dependence on a substance but also a psychological dependence. He sought help from a therapist who explained to him the different factors that contribute to addiction. The therapist explained that addiction is caused by a combination of genetic predisposition, social environment, and individual psychology. Some people are more prone to addiction due to genetic factors, while others develop an addiction due to stress or trauma in their lives. The therapist helped John to understand that addiction is a complex and multifaceted phenomenon that requires a holistic approach to treatment. John also learned that addiction can be both a cause and a symptom of psychological issues. For example, someone struggling with depression may turn to drugs or alcohol to cope with their symptoms. Over time, this can lead to addiction and make the underlying psychological issues worse. The therapist also explained that addiction is not just about the substance itself, but also about the feelings and emotions associated with using it. People who struggle with addiction may develop an emotional attachment to the substance, and this attachment can be difficult to break. By understanding the psychology of addiction, John was able to see that his addiction was not just a moral failing or a lack of willpower. He realized that there were underlying issues that were contributing to his addiction and that he needed to address these issues to overcome it. John knew that he couldn't overcome his addiction on his own, so he decided to seek help from a therapist. The therapist helped him to understand the root causes of his addiction and provided him with the tools and support he needed to work on his recovery. At first, John was hesitant to seek help. He felt ashamed of his addiction and didn't want anyone to know about it. However, he soon realized that seeking help was a sign of strength, not weakness. It took courage to admit that he needed help, and he was proud of himself for taking that first step. The therapist provided a safe and non-judgmental space for John to talk about his addiction. He encouraged John to be honest about his feelings and to explore the underlying issues that were contributing to his addiction. Through therapy, John was able to develop a better understanding of himself and his addiction. The therapist also helped John to develop a plan for his recovery. He suggested that John attend support groups, such as Alcoholics Anonymous, and recommended that he try new hobbies to replace his old habits. John was hesitant at first, but he soon realized that trying new things was a great way to distract himself from his addiction and to find new sources of happiness. Overall, seeking help was a crucial step in John's journey to recovery. It allowed him to confront his addiction head-on and to develop the skills and tools he needed to overcome it. With the help of his therapist, John started working on his recovery. He attended support groups, like Alcoholics Anonymous, and started to develop new hobbies to replace his old habits. At first, it was difficult for John to adjust to his new lifestyle. He missed the familiar feelings associated with drinking and smoking, and he struggled to find new sources of happiness. However, he soon realized that his new habits were making him feel better in the long run. He found that he enjoyed hiking and exploring new places, and he made new friends through the support group. Working on his recovery wasn't easy, but John persevered. He learned that recovery was a process and that setbacks were a normal part of that process. Whenever he had a setback, he reminded himself of how far he had come and how much he had to lose if he relapsed. John also learned the importance of self-care during his recovery. He started to prioritize his health and well-being by eating well, getting enough sleep, and exercising regularly. He found that taking care of his physical and mental health helped him to feel better and to stay on track with his recovery. Through his journey, John learned that recovery was possible, but it required hard work and dedication. He learned to take it one day at a time and to focus on the present moment. By doing so, he was able to stay focused on his goals and to continue working towards a healthy and happy life. After months of hard work, John was finally able to overcome his addiction. He no longer felt the urge to drink or smoke, and he felt happier and healthier than ever before. Overcoming addiction was not easy for John, but he learned that it was possible with the right mindset and support. He realized that he couldn't do it alone and that he needed the help of others to succeed. John also learned the importance of staying vigilant after overcoming addiction. He knew that relapse was always a possibility and that he needed to be careful not to fall back into old habits. He continued attending support groups and therapy to help him stay on track and to develop new strategies for maintaining his sobriety. John's journey to recovery taught him a lot about himself and his addiction. He learned that addiction is a complex and multifaceted phenomenon that requires a holistic approach to treatment. He also learned that seeking help was a sign of strength and that recovery was possible with the right mindset and support. In the end, John was grateful for his journey to recovery. He felt like he had a new lease on life and was excited about the future. He knew that there would be challenges along the way, but he was confident that he had the tools and support he needed to overcome them. After overcoming his addiction, John felt a strong desire to help others who were struggling with addiction. He wanted to share his story and offer support to those who were going through a similar experience. John started by volunteering at his local support group, where he helped to organize events and offered guidance to others in recovery. He also spoke publicly about his experience with addiction, hoping to raise awareness and reduce the stigma associated with addiction. As John became more involved in the recovery community, he realized that there was a need for more resources and support for those in recovery. He decided to start his own organization, which would provide a safe and supportive environment for those in recovery to connect with others and access the resources they needed. John's organization became a huge success, with many people finding the support they needed to overcome their addiction. John was proud of the impact he was making and felt fulfilled knowing that he was making a difference in the lives of others. Through his advocacy work, John realized that recovery was not just about overcoming addiction, but also about living a fulfilling and meaningful life. He saw that recovery was a journey that required ongoing support and that it was possible to not only overcome addiction, but also to thrive in life. John's story is a testament to the power of recovery and the importance of advocacy in promoting awareness and support for those in recovery. He showed that by coming together and supporting one another, we can overcome addiction and create a brighter future for ourselves and our communities. In conclusion, the journey to recovery from addiction is a complex and challenging process, but it is possible with the right mindset and support. Understanding the psychology of addiction is an important first step in this journey, as it helps individuals to identify the root causes of their addiction and develop strategies to overcome it. Seeking help is another critical step in the recovery process. This may involve reaching out to a therapist or support group for guidance and support. Working on recovery requires a commitment to change, which may involve developing new habits and hobbies and prioritizing self-care. Overcoming addiction is a significant accomplishment, but it is important to remain vigilant and continue to seek support to maintain sobriety. Advocating for addiction recovery can also be a powerful way to help others and reduce the stigma associated with addiction. John's story is an inspiring example of the power of recovery and the importance of advocacy in promoting awareness and support for those in recovery. Through his journey, he learned that recovery is possible and that there is hope for a brighter future.